Hi
Buongiorno a
everyone,
tutti,
I'm
sono
Diego
Diego
Mazzocato,
Mazzocato,
and I
sono
have a
laureato in
degree in PE.
traumatologia, sono
I'm a physiotherapist and an instructor of Nordic Walking at the ANWI Nordic Walking Association of Italy. Welcome to this first course on how to use the Gable e-poles, smart poles for Nordic Walking. Today we will talk about Nordic Walking techniques and a digital way of estimating your data. This video starts the section of practical lessons. We will talk about the history of Nordic walking and give a detailed description of this activity. You will learn about common materials and equipment used for Nordic walking sessions. Then I will name some national and international organizations that provide training for instructors of Nordic walking. I will go through the techniques and describe different intensity levels of this activity. I will also bring up a topic on the benefits of this activity that are covered in some scientific research. At the end, I will explain how to monitor your results using e-poles. Let's start out our presentation with some background information about this quite popular activity nowadays. A physical activity similar to Nordic walking dates back to the 1930s in Finland. The truth is that the Finnish ski team was looking for a way to keep its athletes in shape, even during the summer. They used a special training program where they needed to use long poles during walking. Thus, that off-season ski training activity resembles present-day Nordic walking. Then Nordic walking, as we know it now, developed in the 1960s and 70s, thanks to Leena Jakselinen. She was a PE teacher, and she was the first who tried to integrate pole walking during her own lessons in schools. Later, she became a professor of PE of the Finnish University and started to promote this activity in her training courses. She became a chief inspector of the Ministry of PE, and it also helped to popularize this activity among young people in schools and universities. She became a chief inspector of the Ministry of PE, and it also helped to popularize this activity among young people in schools and universities. Later in the 80s, Tomo Jandin created a public event for many people who wanted to walk in Finland, and the famous phrase was born after this: "This is a sport of the future." And indeed, it appeared to be true. At the same time, in another part of the world, the USA, a professional athlete, Tom Ruthven, got injured. He was looking for a way to stay in shape and started using walking poles in his training. He then developed a physical activity called X-Striding. And in the 90s, the father of Nordic walking, Marco Cantaneva, started promoting this activity. He used to organize different events to popularize the sport. The spread of various articles on this topic spiked not only national, but also international interest. Basically, he introduced the name of this activity, and it translates as pole walking. 1997 is the official start of Nordic walking. It became possible due to the manufacturer EXA that produced different sports products and equipment. It promoted Nordic walking all over the world. The name of this activity also became popular due to the name of its poles. Later on in 1998, 1999, Nordic walking left the Finnish borders and was introduced to other countries such as Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. And then in 2000, INWA, International Nordic Walking Association, was founded. This is the international association that promotes activity and is responsible for training instructors of Nordic walking. Thanks to its foundation and the spread of information about the sport, Nordic walking became quite popular. Thus, in 2003, there was a spike in the number of people practicing this sport, from 1 million to 2 million people. In 2004, also due to the efforts of the sports brands such as Adidas, who started producing related sports products, the sport gained even more attention. Then in 2008, there were already 8 million people who were passionate about Nordic walking. October 10th, 2010 was considered as an International Day of Nordic Walking. That was more than 10 million people in around 40 countries who were practicing Nordic Walking. Let's first define what Nordic Walking is. It is important to distinguish this activity from any other competitive sport. This activity aims to benefit psychological well-being. It includes regular walking with the help of walking poles. They are specially designed and manufactured for this sport. Nordic walking is conventional walking with a corresponding motor pattern with a correct biomechanical posture. The amplitude of movements of the arms should be the same as during the conventional walking. The use of walking poles activates the upper body engagement. It's clearly described and shown in scientific research. The right use of poles makes the posture a bit inclined to the ground. Then it's crucial to hold the grip, then can analyze rhythm and dynamic work. How the upper and lower limbs work. This sport provides exercise to the whole body. The upper and the lower body's muscular are engaged together while moving. It is a physical activity for everyone, children, adults, professional athletes, and amateurs, and people with various chronic diseases. It is also part of some rehabilitation programs. By definition, it is an activity that makes walking more challenging and engages not only the arms, but also the trunk. It's a safe, dynamic activity that can be done in everyday life. It's also the discipline that should be performed outdoors rather than indoors. For example, in an urban park or forest, natural colors such as green, color of trees, blue, the color of the sky, also benefits the well-being of human beings. As mentioned previously, it is not a competitive sport. The main principles of this activity include the right movements and inclination of the body that help to develop a particular balance and the right posture. The last one is crucial. The movements should be natural, dynamic, rhythmic, with the engagement of muscles of the upper and lower body and the center of the body. It trains the full body and provides an aerobic workout for the person. Continuous alternation of the activation and relaxation of muscles presents a natural equilibrium between tension and relaxation. It is an activity that's easy to do and adaptable to the intensity level according to the needs of a person. It includes all regular elements that we perform daily, such as walking, leaning forward, carrying the weights. There are no barriers for any age, sex, physical state, social status. Let's now talk about the equipment commonly used during the Nordic walking sessions. The pose could look similar to the pose of cross-country skiing or trekking, but they are totally different poses. Nordic walking poses are shorter and lighter. They have a simpler, more aerobic grip in comparison to the ski pose. They are shorter as they work better on smoother terrain rather than on snow surfaces. They are also different from trekking poles. Nordic walking poles are lighter. The handle is more aerodynamic. The stripes are quite particular and different from those of the trekking poles, as their functions are different. The shaft can be divided in three parts: the upper part, the central part, and the lower one. The upper part consists of the grip and the strap. The shaft represents the central part. And in the lower part, there is the tip that you can change when needed. The grip is adjusted to the shape of the hand. The carefully designed materials don't cause any skin irritation. The cord that is used for the grip is a natural, non-toxic material that resists sweat in cold temperatures. So it's rather comfortable to work out in any weather. There is some rubber and an antimicrobial material that is also important during sports sessions. The function of a strap is very important. It should be comfortable, easily adjusted to the hand, and give the needed support during walking. It should also give total control during arm movements. The material is soft but resistant, so it doesn't stretch with time. Another crucial feature of the strap makes it easier to open the palm of your hand and also hold a pole easily. It also gives the pump effect to the hand circulation and facilitates the venous lymphatic blood flow of a hand other than just improving the engagement of the upper body part. It helps to relax cervical muscles as well. There are several types of straps on the market. Some of them are designed to hold 4 fingers in one section and the thumb in another. There are bigger straps for the whole hand that allow a person to move with open hands without holding a pole. Some of them have function click systems that allow you to free your hands fast. It can be practical when a person needs to have 2 hands in a situation of necessity and not to be constrained. The shaft is the central part of the pole. It could be made of different materials such as aluminum or carbon, or the mix of the two, and fiberglass. This is one of the main characteristics while choosing poles, as the weight of the pole can't be over 150 to 180 grams to allow natural arm movement. The choice of material permits to control the level of vibrations from the upper body part, shoulder and elbows, and reduces the muscular tension. Carbon is an ideal material, but it's also quite expensive. It helps to resist maximum pressure due to its rigidity, despite its length. Aluminum is more elastic. It can resist more cutting pressure. Thus, it stays a bit heavier in comparison to carbon material. Then in general, the shaft is well balanced, with the weight distributed more to the handle rather than to the tip. As the weight of the tip is lighter, it helps to move the pole. Regular measures of length instead of range from 100 to 130 centimeters, with fixed or regulated systems. Let's talk about the tip. It contains a plastic element. It's fixed with the glue, but it's easy to change. The tip is designed in a way that gives a small inclination to enable good traction on surfaces. Thus, it offers a steady hold on soft, or even ice surfaces. If the surface is too small, it's reasonable to add a small basket that enlarges the grip territory and reduces the possibility for the tip to sink in. Additionally, there's also a rubber tip replacement for walking on other surfaces. It's excellent for asphalt surfaces and can be easily placed. Then a special rubber rigid tip could be placed to walk effectively on natural terrain and not be stuck among branches or in the soil. We must as well mention the system anti-impact patented by Gable. It helps to amortize the reduced vibrations that are considered damaging and that are usually higher than 100 hertz. The system drastically reduces exposure to the vibrations of this kind during prolonged periods. It uses the cellular cushion. Similar technology is used in the automobile industry. Other systems are different elements and don't include metallic elements, and they lack the same level of amortization, and its effectiveness usually worsens with time. The anti-impact system effectively absorbs the vibrations of surfaces and reduces the stress of the wrist and the elbows, especially while working out on hard surfaces while walking down. Another crucial factor while choosing your walking poles is the length. There are 3 ways to measure the right length. The first one is to consult the INWA recommendations with the ratio between your height and the perfect length. It could be easily found and downloaded from the internet. There is the second option. You need to measure your height and multiply it by the coefficient of 0.68. The result would be the ideal length of the pole. But last, not least, You have to be standing straight. Hold a pose so the tips rest on the ground. Then form an angle of 90 degrees with your elbow. If you are able to do it, then the length is perfect. And last but not least, you have to be standing straight. Hold a pose so the tip rests on the ground. Then form an angle of 90 degrees with your elbow. If you are able to do it, then the length is perfect. These are individual features, as all of us are different. We have different places, physical characteristics, and thus also we can opt for various pole lengths. It also depends on the place where we walk, our physical state, intensity level of sports sessions, and our potential abilities to perform. Another serious question is the choice of appropriate shoes. We need to be sure to have sturdy shoes for rugged terrain. Opt for shoes with a Vibram sole. Then they also should be water resistant and breathable. Thus, look out for the shoes that are made with the use of Gore-Tex fabric. Regarding the shoe structure, they should have a small heel with the back part a bit rounded to provide soft landing and comfortable feet movements. The center part of the shoe should provide balance, which is crucial for lateral parts of the leg. Example, the ankle. And the tip shouldn't be rigid, as it should provide a comfortable position during the final part of the movements. Concerning other sport gear, Gable also produces handy bottles and document holders. They give the opportunity to take necessary objects like keys from the car, which we have left in the parking area of an urban forest, or even more important, to remember to keep yourself hydrated during a long walk. I should also mention the importance of gloves, especially designed for Nordic Walking by Gable. These are light gloves that could be easily put on and taken off. A special click system and adjustable closure can help to free the hand fast when needed. Then I want to give some practical advice on clothes as well. The first layer of clothes, example, underwear, should be made of special synthetic materials to absorb sweat. Cotton is not advisable. The second layer of clothing should keep the body warm. An ideal material is fleece. And the last layer should be water and windproof. The upper layer of clothing should be also comfortable and easy to put on and take off. As I mentioned earlier, there are several institutions promoting Nordic walking. One of them is INWA, which was created in Finland in 2000. It works hard to spread information about Nordic walking all over the world. Nowadays, there are more than 40 countries where there are different associations who train Nordic walking instructors and create educational programs. INWA collaborates with the scientific and medical communities to develop up-to-date programs that can benefit people who practice the sport. For example, it came up with a program called the 10-Step Method, a training recognized throughout the world. INWA also partners with international organizations such as WHO, IOC, and UNESCO to reach out to many countries to promote a healthy lifestyle and increase interest in physical activity. ANWI is the only association in Italy recognized by INWA. Now, let's move to a description of techniques of Nordic walking. It's based on 3 principles. The first one is the right posture. The second one is the right walking technique. And the last one is the correct use of the pose while walking. Don't forget that the pose shouldn't affect your natural walking. The ability to rely on your body during the workout or distribute your motoric system coordination, speed of movements. It's a tool to boost the regular benefits of ordinary walking. Posture is a body position and its relation with different body parts that are linked to external environment. There is static body posture. Although, according to research, the body can't be fully static as it does the tiniest movements to keep the equilibrium. And there is a dynamic body posture that is defined by different continuous body movements. I have mentioned the right posture, but it's quite difficult to describe the posture with this word. It's better to call it the ideal body posture, as the position more suitable to our gravity, as one of the main aims of a human being to resist gravity impulses. We need to opt for an ideal posture to ease the effect on the vertebrae column, as we give the right weight to the bones and the joints without overloading the muscles excessively. Thus, the body posture should be controlled to allow natural and easy movements. We should also mention here the ideal body alignments. They create the best optimum body position during the walking. The ideal posture should be in line with these three body parts: the head, the rib cage, and the pelvis. The ideal alignment creates the stable position to withstand the gravity without too much effort and tension, not to mention that it can withstand overloading of the articular and muscular system. This picture here could show us how the difference between the ideal lineup and the wrong one. There are some incorrect lineups determined by the wrong posture, and in the long run, they can affect muscular alignments, articular systems, and cause health problems. The last one is the ideal posture for a person where there are three main dots are aligned. We ought to mention other influential health practices. Pilates, for example, also stresses out the neutral position of the pelvis that serves as a base for the vertebral column. The lumbar vertebrae should align correctly to form the normal curve to distribute the weight correctly in different situations. Example, while sitting and walking. In turn, Banjabi created the notion of a neutral zone. This is the position where internal stress of the column and the muscular tension create minimum pressure for the vertebral column. That means, even the ergonomic point of view, the effort made by muscles to maintain the posture is minimal. We need to keep in mind another fundamental thing. A particular body part, muscles of core. Core is a commonly used notion today. There are specific groups of muscles of the abdominal belt. Example, muscles around the stomach, obliques and lumbar, motility. The muscles responsible for the balance of the column and the pelvis in the above-mentioned neutral pelvis position create regular movements without overwhelming the passive ligaments. Now that we talked about posture, let's talk about its importance for our health. The posture guarantees the right osseous alignments, which allow the correct use of tendon muscles. It reduces the stress of joint and ligamentous structures and guarantees the effective use of internal muscles. It also prevents the rigidity of column and abnormal positions and protects it against deviations mentioned earlier. And finally, it improves the general well-being of a person and its self-image. Let's also look at the models when posture can be deviated. There are two images of upper cross syndrome and lower cross syndrome. They are characterized by overlapping overactive and underactive muscles. In the first model, we can see the weakness of some muscles at the front of the neck and the weakness of medium lower trapeze. There are contrasts with the muscles at the rear of the side of the neck, upper trapeze, which are overly tight. If not treated on time, in the long run, the poor posture leads to health problems. In the second picture, we can see the lower cross syndrome, a condition in which there are tight and weak muscles. The gluteus muscles and the abdominal muscles are inhibited, and the hip flexors and the extenders of the lower and mid back are engaged too much. I should say that Nordic walking can help prevent both models of poor posture. How? The use of pose leads to important activation of muscles of the middle and lower trapeze and trains the back muscles. This in turn creates reverse impulses of the back and stretches and relaxes the tight chest muscles. In the same way, it relaxes the line of the neck muscles. pivotal activation of the trunk muscles and the constant rotation of the shoulders, grilled, and the pelvis is responsible for the activation of the abdominal muscles. The increasing length of steps activates the gluteal and stretches the flexor muscles. Example, iliopulse. As you might notice, these two diagnoses are common among people, such as simple active, as Nordic walking can significantly improve people's life and health. The second fundamental thing is walking. Walking is a natural way of movement with a purpose to move from one point to another. Even if it seems quite simple for us, it is a complex sequence of activities from the biological, mechanical, and physiological aspect of our body, from toe to head. During this activity, we transfer the body weight from one foot to another in a constant rhythmic way. It requires us to be able to control the balance, the right timing for the sequence of movements, and also adjustment to different superficies and situations that can encounter outdoors. A repetition of movements is called a cycle of walking. A cycle starts when we place our foot on the ground and a consecutive change of foot to place another foot on the ground. It could be basically divided into three phases. The first one is when we place our foot on the ground, it corresponds to 60% of walking. Then next, the second phase is the transfer phase, when we decide where to put the second foot. It corresponds to 40% of walking. And the final phase is the phase of standing, where 2 feet are on the ground. This is crucial in understanding the difference between walking and running. Running consists of short phases when both of your feet are off the ground and you are in a float phase. In walking, there is a phase when both of them are on the ground. Now let's move to another detailed set of phases known internationally. There are 8 of them. The first one is the phase of initial contact of the heel with the ground. Then the fully placed foot receives the weight of the body. Example, the loading response. Then there is a mid-stance phase, when the other foot takes off from the ground and passes responsibility for the balancing the whole body weight to the foot on the ground. The next, a terminal stance, is a stage when a heel raises from the ground and the collateral foot makes the initial contact. A pre-swing phase is the 5th phase, when the body weight is moved to the contralateral foot, which prepares the oscillation of the limb. Then we have an initial swing phase, when the foot takes off and the limb moves forward. After there is a mid-swing phase, responsible for limb advancement, and the terminal swing is the final stage of the gait cycle, when the knee stretches and the limbs prepare to hit the ground. So we have here the end of the cycle and the beginning of a new one. Another important thing we need to mention is the function of the foot. It is a complex organ where the heel is responsible to reduce the stress when our feet hit the ground. The center part adapts the surfaces of the terrain and offers stability for when we need to move forward. Thus, basically reduces the initial inevitable stress of hitting the ground and transforms it into energy to move, and then finishes in the frontal part of the foot. This dynamic is called a foot roll. The heel makes contact with the ground, then engages the whole foot in a rolling action, absorbs the stress progressively, and then finishes with a push off from the toes as you can move forward. It passes the energy to the frontal part, to the toe when it loses contact with the surface. This image clearly shows the curved line of the weight spread. Initially distributed in the heel, it goes to the middle part and then reaches the toe part when moved forward. And the last pillar is the pose. Nordic walking is similar to ordinary walking. Thus, it is the phase of support when we have pose and the feet that meet the ground. And then there is the swing phase, where the arm and the respective poles move forward together with the opposite leg. Let's underline the contrast between the upper limb and the lower contralateral limb. In this actual phase of a double support, where there are 4 points of contact with the surface and not 2, we have 2 active lower limbs and 2 active upper limbs that are connected with the help of a pole. The use of poles makes the engagement of the upper muscles more active, and that allows bigger amplitude of the arm movements, and as a result increases step length, but with regular biomechanics of a body. And it creates a balance contraposition between rotations of the scapula of the shoulder and the griddle and the pelvic griddle. The formed amplitude of movements of upper and lower limbs is superior to that of an ordinary walking without the poles. Now, let's have a short description of Nordic walking techniques and highlight its crucial characteristics. I would like to repeat that Gable and Anwi also provide courses for those who want to learn better Nordic walking techniques. And in the following short video, you will see how the right arm and the elbow move forward, and the elbow is naturally bent. The pole is replaced in the inclined position with fingers holding the handle. The left knee stretches while the heel is on the ground to start the foot roll. Then we move to the initial propulsion with the right arm with a pole, and the right arm is always inclined backwards. The hand is always on the handle. The left foot is on the ground. The knee is a bit bent to reduce the stress gained from the body weight. The right hand in the strap slightly relieves the grip, but still continues the movement forward. The arm is always a bit bent, moving at the side of the pelvis, and the knee stretches again, and the body moves forward. The arm continues the movement backwards. The elbow stretches out. The pole is still inclined. The right heel lifts up to transfer the body weight for the movement, and the hip stretches out, expands. The full extension of the elbows and the relief of the hand gives the impulse to recover the pole and start the oscillation of the right arm. The left leg moves forward, and the foot finishes its foot roll in its toes. The arm and the pole on the right side move forward. The hand grasps the handle and carries the pole forward. The knee bends to permit the free oscillation of the limb without hitting the foot on the ground. The arm continues oscillation forward up to the end which the elbow naturally bent. The hand is on the handle and holds the pole in the inclined position to place it again on the ground. Then the leg continues the movement to reach the extension of the knee and sets out the direction for the heel to stomp the ground. After this short description of the technique, I would like to break down the categories of Nordic walking. First, as I have mentioned, this activity is suitable for any person regardless the sex, gender, age, and the physical capability, capacity, and the intensity levels of working out. The technique can be divided into 3 categories according to the efforts and programs that suit muscular and cardiovascular systems. The first category is called the level of wellness. It is determined by the maximum heart rate of 50 to 60%, HR max. Duration of this activity for this level varies from 15 to 30 minutes, including warm-up and cool down. You can practice it as often as you want, even every day, as intensity is quite low, and you can choose plain surfaces such as asphalt roads and park roads. The aim of this level is to create the base and improve aerobics resilience of a person. This level is suitable for anyone who is interested to get familiar with the physical activity. Amateurs, people doing Sunday activities, the elderly, people with problems of equilibrium and limited speed, and people who fight some chronic problems. It's the perfect activity for people who want to lose weight, as well as for people who would like to improve their general well-being level. The technique is not challenging to perform as stretching of the knee, rotations of our arm, and the body inclinations are a bit limited for the level. As a result, people who practice this technique at this level feel better, improve their body balance, and upper lower body structures and psychophysical state. The next level is the level of fitness. The maximum heart is 60 to 85 heart rate max. An average duration of working out ranges from 20 to 60 minutes, including warm up and cool down. The frequency is 3 times per week, not more. Surfaces could be different. You can practice it on plain surface or on uphill ones. You can opt for sand, forest, or park roads, unpaved roads. It requires more effort from our muscles and cardiovascular system. The aim is to perform well with some elements of aerobics. The people who do it are usually of an intermediate level. As mentioned before, it requires more engagement and more attention to detail during more exercises that require muscle resistance. The benefits are improvement of muscle and power, weight loss, and it activates the metabolism and tonification of muscles. This level of Nordic walking is similar to an ordinary walking and includes engagement of extension of the arm and opening of the hand. It also includes different exercises with the help of pose, mostly dynamic aerobic exercises and proper breathing. It's advised to people who want to lose weight and improve their aerobic resistance. Body weight exercises and additional exercises with the resistance of bands allow to improve musculature. Sport is the next level that is characterized by high intensity training. The maximum heartbeat is around 80 to 95%, HR max. The duration is also 60 minutes and includes warm up and cool down. The frequency is 3 times per week. You should exercise this level of Nordic walking on almost all kinds of grounds, forest paths, covered roads, except asphalt and rough surfaces. The last won't be ideal, as many dynamic exercises are incorporated at this level, and walking on asphalt and irregular surface may lead to injury, as it might be difficult to use the pose. Uphill roads are preferable and also used frequently while walking at this level. Here we perform regular Nordic walking techniques with interval exercises and/or ordinary running at various speeds. People who practice this activity are usually athletes or people with a high level of physical abilities. The benefits are improvement of muscle strength, muscular responsiveness, aerobic, and anaerobic resilience. This is an advanced level of Nordic walking, and it requires the capacity to walk and use the pose to overcome some obstacles and walk uphill or downhill. It often includes circuit training with the pose, free body exercises with significant intensity, rhythmic gymnastic exercises. It is popular among sportsmen for the preparation training. Now, as we talk about different intensity levels, let's talk a bit more about walking uphill or downhill. Even during these complex activities, the technique stays the same. Some arrangements when walking uphill are that our body is inclined more than usual, and the use of the arms becomes extremely important and helps to place the centric of the body weight higher in respect to the previous position. Gluteus flexor hind muscles and calves are actively engaged. We involve the heel less and use the frontal part of the foot more. The push of the arms help to unload the part of the body weight from the upper leg, and this helps to redistribute stress better. On the other hand, the walking downhill technique showed that our body tilts backwards towards the slope. Our steps become shorter, slowing down, opposing the effect of the gravity force. There is a small decrease of gravity's center as our body moves closer to the ground. The knees are a bit more flexible in the way that they are constantly engaged, the thigh muscles, and respond to every step, creating the brake effect. Our body tries to reduce the stress when we place our feet on the ground. The foot roll is minimal. The heel engagement is quite high. The body weight is distributed between the heel and the opposite pole. Here, when we lean more on the pole, we have less pressure on the opposite leg. Example, the function of the pole is not to create propulsion, but to take some body weight. The pressure of the pole carries out the propulsion to the high, and it helps to discharge part of the body weight from the knee. The poles are always held backwards and not presented forward as they reduce oscillation. Now let's mention some details of scientific research tested Nordic walking. We can find more than 350 research papers with testing Nordic walking. They can be divided into three main groups: fitness, psychological aspects connected to Nordic walking, and the aspects regarding rehabilitation, and the biomechanical aspects shown during this activity. Regarding the fitness group, we will cite some results obtained from a study. It was done to compare the benefits of ordinary walking and Nordic walking. The subjects were both men and women. The results demonstrated the increase of oxygen consumption, the increase of energetic consumption, and the increase of heartbeat and lung ventilation. The results were measured by Borg rating of perceived exertion scale, RPE scale. In the same way, ordinary walking was compared with Nordic walking on different surfaces and walking up and downhill. The results noted that VO2 was higher in the Nordic walking group on inclines of 15%. It stated that exercising on soft surfaces like grass helped to increase the MiO2 and the metabolic consumption more than when it was placed on rough surfaces like cement. Other studies examined the differences and benefits of the proper way of exercising and the wrong one. They showed that even the wrong or the partially wrong execution of the technique of walking and the use of the pose was still more beneficial than ordinary walking. Still, the most benefits were seen when the people used the correct technique with the right way of using the pose. It resulted in an increased oxygen level and metabolism. It shows that the benefits are real, and if you want to get the best of them, you need some good preparation. Another research on the effects of Nordic walking was done during the session of Nordic walking among women in premenopause, perimenopause, and postmenopause. As in the other research, the results showed an increase of oxygen consumption and improvement of the lipid determination. Last but not least, it also demonstrated a high concentration of HDL, high density lipoprotein, responsible for the transfer of triglycerides, AKI, good cholesterol. Moreover, it showed a general decrease of cholesterol, weight loss, and reduction of waistline. The same was shown in the group with the elderly who had participated in the sessions of Nordic walking. Together with an intake of vitamin B, the results showed the improvement of physical and cognitive state. These benefits were self-registered through questionnaires by participants who noticed reduction of depressive moods and an increase of overall life satisfaction. Some other research showed that practicing Nordic walking in a group improved psychophysical and level thanks to the feeling of belonging to the group. We can conclude that the Nordic walking sessions can have positive impacts on different levels. It benefits not only our direct biological health by changing our psychological state for the better, but improves our general well-being, cognitive capabilities, level of happiness and life satisfaction, and social health status. A number of studies have shown as well that Nordic walking help in different rehabilitation programs. It demonstrated the beneficial effects of Nordic walking in people who suffer from cardiocirculatory, neurological, physiological, and orthopedic problems. One report has shown the results of Nordic walking in the group of people with chronic cardiac insufficiency. Precisely, it showed that sessions of Nordic walking help improve the autonomic nervous system, the link between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems. It helped to gain additional cardiorespiratory benefits due to the higher consumption of oxygen in people in the study. Then, when some studies were conducted in a group of people with an acute coronary syndrome, one group was asked to participate in a standard cardiovascular rehabilitation program using treadmill and calisthenic exercises. Another group was asked to use treadmill exercises and ordinary walking. And a third program included a standard program together with sessions of Nordic walking. It was carried out using the senior fitness test. To conclude, the third program resulted in significant changes in their physical state to fight above-mentioned chronic health problems. For people with coronary diseases, Nordic walking sessions showed better results in improvement of performance of heart and lung-related systems than conventional walking. An interesting fact is that during the test, the study group didn't show any alteration on the level of electrocardiogram record. It means that Nordic walking is safe for people with coronary diseases. The people in a group who experienced a heart attack participated in another study. The results showed that Nordic walking could improve their physical performance better than just regular walking. Another group affected by peripheral arterial disease with intermittent claudication, the test showed that the sessions of Nordic walking helped people to cover more distance than ordinary walking. It also showed low results on the Borg scale. It means that Nordic walking can be an effective part of rehabilitation programs for people with cardiovascular problems. I would like to mention that the most of the research was impartial and biased. Thus, most of the participants of one study were asked to use different types of walking aids, a simple walking stick and Nordic walking pose. And the people didn't notice any improvements while using any of the pose. In this case, the study hasn't shown any beneficial results. On the other hand, people who suffered from Parkinson's disease were asked to perform some sessions of Nordic walking, and the results showed the improvement of their health. It was shown with the help of the time up and go test, a test of ordinary walking, 10-meter test, and commonly used 6-minute walk test. Other than improvement on walking, the study showed the general improvement of quality of life. It was shown with the help of the PDQ-39 test, where patients self-measured their health status. As mentioned above, the sessions of Nordic walking showed improvement in fighting depression as well. Thus, the right treatment together with Nordic walking sessions could be a real aid to people with mental health problems. Another study was done with the participants who studied from vertebrae fractures and osteoporosis. The result of Nordic walking resulted in improvement of the strength of back, arm, trunk muscles. They also showed the neck muscles and the upper limb system became more engaged. It gave more equilibrium to the participants, better coordination during the walking, and relief in injured body parts. And the last part of my lecture about the research into Nordic walking reflects the effects of this activity on biomechanical perimeters. These research projects are important to understand in which way our movements are connected with muscles and joints. We can find 5 different studies of mechanical perimeters. These are studies of speed and distance of walking, registered muscle activation, muscle strength, temporal and spatial perimeters of walking, kinematic perimeters, and ground reaction force. Regarding speed and distance, we can see many studies show the same results. Example, Nordic Walking increased walking distance, plus 14.8%, walking speed, plus 25.5%, and stride length, plus 10, but decreased cadence, minus 6.2. Regarding the temporospadial parameters, camera-recorded results showed that practicing Nordic walking increased the length of the step than ordinary walking, and it benefited people who have walking difficulties, as, for example, the elderly and people who suffered from Parkinson's disease. Results in activation and strength of muscles during Nordic walking are not always the same in different research projects. Some of them show that the use of pose can definitely increase activation and strength of muscles in the upper limbs and reduce the engagement of the lower limbs, especially in the propulsion and the stance phases. Other reports show an increase of activity upper limbs through electromyography signals, but didn't notice any significant changes in work of the lower system in comparison with regular walking without pose. One research report upper muscle engagement by 2 to 15%, more than during regular walking on plain surfaces or walking downhill. In the same research, there was shown a lower level of engagement of the erectorospinal than during the conventional walking. And it's interesting that the electrospinal muscles were less engaged during the uphill gait when participants used Nordic walking pose. It means Nordic walking could also be a suitable activity for people with chronic low back pain, as certain muscles will be engaged less, but they benefit from the sessions anyway. Some results also registered the activation of muscles of the external oblique muscles of abdomen, rectum, and in comparison with regular walking. All of it proves that Nordic walking sessions had beneficial effects on the abdominal muscles. The results could vary, but still they show that Nordic walking helps to engage upper limb systems and most abdominal muscles. Studies on the temporospadial parameters were held in a group of elderly people. The age range from 65 to 74 years old. Through the video analysis, the study proved that participants improved the length of the gait cycle and reduced the gait cycle frequency. It provides the session improved roam, range of motion, and consecutively reduce the risk of injuries. It's an activity that is good for elderly people and for people suffering neurological problems as well. Studies in kinematics demonstrated that Nordic walking sessions improve roam of hips more than ordinary walking. The roam of knees and ankles was not significantly changed. Finally, studies in the biomechanical aspects of Nordic walking measured the impact and ground reaction forces. At the moment, these studies are quite contradictory and not equivocal. Some studies conclude that the speed and the length of the gait cycle is superior to that of natural walking. Other studies register that there is reduction of the vertical ground of reaction force and the reduction of compression load to the knees. On the other hand, some reported the results on vertical reaction force of natural walking doesn't differ from that of Nordic walking. It seems that a common opinion that Nordic walking is able to reduce the loading on the lower limbs to 30 to 50% should be reconsidered. Some reports show an increase of GFR levels, ground reaction forces, and decrease in loading rate from delayed peak vertical GFR time during the propulsion phase. It should be explained as in this particular phase, the force is diminished thanks to the use of the pose. To conclude this presentation, benefits of Nordic walking, I would also show the results of some research on Nordic walking and the rate of injuries while practicing the activity. As you can see, the rate of injuries per 1,000 hours of sessions is extremely low. It also shows that upper limb could be affected a little bit more than lower limbs. For example, the thumb, the back, and the muscle of gastrocnemius might be injured more often. Nevertheless, the lowest level of injuries can help us to consider it as a very safe sport in comparison with other activities. The last part of my presentation is dedicated to the digital monitoring of sessions of Nordic Walking. As I have mentioned in the first lecture, the project was created due to the collaboration of the Polytechnic University of Turin, Company Gable, and a research center, Cheersroom. The protocol was created in 2016. It was a draft version and could be characterized as an extremely heavy object with different additional devices attached to the pose. And as a result, finding ways to improve the product, to decrease its weight, and miniaturize all the additional parts. In 2019, we saw the arrival of the new product. It can be described as much lighter and significantly easier to use. While it easily and precisely measures the activity of sessions thanks to the smart sensors in the pose, a person can perform his or her regular Nordic Walking session as usual. The technology by Gable presents mainly an accelerometer and a pressure sensor. The accelerometer can measure the velocity of a body in 3 different directions, X, Y, Z. The accelerations could be static, dynamic, or combined. The last one could be useful for people who use the pose, not only for Nordic Walking. Here we can see the image of the test results. The lines are irregular as the device measures even the slightest oscillations in movement of a person who holds a pole. The next image shows the data of the dynamic accelerations where a person was using the pose, typical falling and uprising direction during the session of Nordic Walking. We can see the active lines in the image that are actually the data of the accelerations. A triaxial accelerometer allows to obtain the description of a complete cyclical movement of an arm and results in a diagram of measurements. The picture shows the longitudinal axis X of a pole. The most important here is for us, as with its help, we can measure the period of cycle, periodo di ciclo. This is the duration between the consecutive repetitions of the same point. And with the help of this data, we can come up with the 3 main phases of the cycle: the recovery phase, the impact phase, and the propulsion phase. This image demonstrates these phases clearly and the intervals between them. We can see that together, the impact and the propulsional phase reflect the moment where the poles were on the ground, while the recovery phase, when the poles are in the air, corresponds to 50% of the whole time. Thus, the recovery phase takes 50% of the whole time, whereas 2 others sum up to another 50% of sessions. Thanks to the data of the longitudinal X, we can come up with other measurements of pole movements. For example, the angle of pose while on the ground in the static position. It's also possible to measure cyclical movements of the poles and also the angle between the poles and the ground. The collaboration between Gable, the University of Turin, and the Research Center of Tourism define the following characteristics as well. Evaluation of the general technique of Nordic Walking is based on the data from 2 poles, whether the performance is well done or not. As you can see in the image, the symmetry shows the correct athletic movements during the Nordic Walking session. The sensor of pressure also measures the data when the palm is open or closed. The propulsion phase and the recovery phase of the pose correspond to the consecutive movements of the hand as it opens and grabs the pose to engage your arms to capture the pose to advance. The data is registered with the specifically designed software that can receive and elaborate the data, making it simple to read and use. The software is called MATLAB, Nordic Walking Analysis. It is a type of informatic language commonly used in research and thus shared. The data is also collected and used by different universities and research centers for future studies. The program calculates and shows the main perimeters, such as angular, temporary perimeters, and the indexes that describe the quality of Nordic walking sessions. The temporal perimeters include cycle duration, contact duration, duty cycle, duration of registration, duration of Nordic walking session, number of cycles, number of grafts, how many times you open your hand, frequentation of cycles per minute. The next angular perimeter consists of medium angle, angle of position, angle of attachment, and the angular range. For example, the difference between angles of position and angles of detachment. Once the data is registered, it gets uploaded on cloud and then transferred to the application, ready to be analyzed by the user. The design application is the mediator between the software and the user, and for this reason, it was developed with an intuitive and user-friendly interface. The visualization permits us to see temporary angular perimeters, histogamma, that help to analyze the angles during the Nordic walking session. There are x-axis, the angle of contact, and the y-axis, the percentage of number of angles of contact made during the performed activity. The application measures not only the angular and the temporary perimeters, the histogamma, the x, and the y, but also regularity alterations, regularity of the grasp, symmetry between the two poles, angular symmetry, and the qualitative data analysis. You can see all this data in the main indexes in the application. It also allows us to evaluate overall performance of Nordic walking sessions. And this brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.